The world feels like it's standing on a fault line, ready to crack. The war in Ukraine has shown how quickly life can spiral into chaos. Cities leveled, lives uprooted, and a nation fighting for survival. But what if this isn't just Ukraine's fight? What if this is the beginning of something bigger? With rising global tensions, growing militaries, and hybrid warfare targeting even the most secure nations, the question isn't if the storm will come, it's whether we are ready to face it. Are we truly prepared for what might be around the corner?
That if Washington allowed Ukraine to fire US, British and French missiles deep into Russia, Moscow would consider those NATO members to be directly involved in the war in Ukraine.
The world feels more unpredictable than it has in decades. Conflicts are no longer distant events that observe from the comfort of our homes. They are inching closer to the places we consider safe. The war in Ukraine has shattered the illusion of security for millions and serves as a stark reminder that no country is immune to the chaos of war. What's happening there isn't just a regional issue, it's a warning to the rest of the world. The kind of destruction and upheaval we are seeing could happen anywhere. Ukraine's struggle has shown how quickly a stable society can be thrown into turmoil. Millions of lives have been disrupted, cities reduced to rubble, and a once thriving nation now faces a future clouded by uncertainty. The scariest part? This isn't an isolated situation. It's a sign of how fragile peace can be when global tensions rise. The reality is that no matter how this war ends, it's clear that the future won't be any safer unless steps are taken to prepare for what's ahead. The days of thinking that wars are someone else's problem are over. The ripple effects of conflict have shown how interconnected the world is, economically, politically, and socially. Rising fuel costs, disrupted supply chains, and global political instability remind us that we are all part of the same fragile system.
You can barely prepare for those considerations other than fleeing your country for a safer, quieter country somewhere else, or building a secret bunker underground and waiting it all out.
The world is facing challenges that demand a different kind of mindset, one that acknowledges the possibility of conflict and prepares for it. It's not about being alarmist, it's about being realistic. The concept of a wartime mindset might sound intense, but it's about readiness and resilience. It's about recognizing the risks we face and taking steps to ensure we are not caught off guard. Preparation isn't just about building stronger armies or producing more weapons, it's about creating systems and strategies that can protect us in the event of large-scale conflict. Defense production needs to be faster, more efficient, and more advanced to match the pace of modern threats. The truth is that the world has become a more dangerous place, and ignoring these realities only creates openings for hostile powers to exploit. Failing to prepare leaves nations vulnerable not only to direct attacks, but also to more subtle forms of warfare, like cyber attacks, economic sabotage, and misinformation campaigns.
President Biden approved their use just days ago. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin is approving a revised nuclear doctrine that lowers the threshold for a nuclear response.
NATO has been ringing the alarm bell for a while, and it's not hard to see why. The threats from Russia aren't just about tanks or troops on the border. They are more subtle, more dangerous in many ways. We are talking about hybrid warfare, where the battlefields aren't just physical, but digital and political. Things like election interference, sabotage, and cyber attacks are designed to weaken countries from the inside out. They create confusion, erode trust in governments, and leave nations vulnerable without a single shot being fired. Eastern European leaders have been warning about this for years. For them, the threat isn't theoretical, it's right on their doorstep. They've watched Russia grow bolder, and they know what's at stake. Their frustration with some Western European nations is understandable. While the East has been sounding the alarm, parts of the West have been slower to react, caught up in debates and hesitation rather than action.
Are now telling citizens to prepare for war. Sweden out with this new video informing residents on how to stockpile food, baby food, medication.
NATO isn't mincing words anymore. They're saying loud and clear that European nations need to step up their defenses. It's not just about protecting individual countries, it's about the stability of the entire region. A divided or unprepared Europe would be an open invitation for more aggressive moves from Russia. What makes this even more concerning is Russia's growing confidence. They've been using these hybrid tactics effectively, and their economy is now geared toward producing weapons at an industrial scale. NATO's warning isn't just for the countries closest to Russia, it's for everyone who values stability and security.
And what does that mean for ordinary Russians? First, what is a wartime economy? Nations at wars have...
Russia has transformed its economy into something most of us haven't seen in decades, a full-scale war machine. Instead of focusing on civilian growth or everyday industries, their economy is being directed towards producing weapons and military supplies at an unprecedented rate. Factories that once produced consumer goods are churning out tanks, missiles, and ammunition. It's not just a shift, it's a full commitment to sustaining a long-term military campaign.
Organize their economies to prioritize that production at home, creating jobs and boosting economic activity in the process. Overall production, measured in gross domestic product, or GDP, rises.
This isn't just about numbers, it's about strategy. With this kind of production capacity, Russia can not only maintain its current military operations, but also prepare for future conflicts. A war-driven economy like this gives them an edge. It means they can stockpile resources, replace losses quickly, and keep their forces supplied in ways other countries might struggle to match. At the same time, their military is gaining real-world experience. Every day the war in Ukraine drags on, Russian soldiers and commanders are learning, adapting, and becoming more battle-hardened. They are refining their strategies and testing their equipment on the front lines. This combination of an aggressive production rate and an increasingly experienced military makes Russia a more immediate and tangible threat. For other nations, this should be a wake-up call. It's not just about what Russia is doing today, it's about what they are preparing for tomorrow. A country with a war economy and a battle-hardened military isn't one that's likely to back down. Ignoring these developments isn't just risky.
President Macron added that France was prepared to prevent a Russian victory in the conflict and urged allies not to restrict assistance.
Western nations are walking a tightrope when it comes to their response to the war in Ukraine. Leaders like French President Emmanuel Macron have been vocal about the potential risks of the conflict spiraling into something even bigger, something no one wants to say out loud, but everyone fears: World War III. Macron, along with other Western leaders, is trying to balance a fine line. They are supporting Ukraine, but they are also wary of doing too much and provoking direct confrontation with Russia.
The least you could say, look, France, this whole policy is very starkly in contrast with the U.S. The U.S. gives 3.4 billion euros in military aid.
This cautious approach is why Western involvement has largely been focused on support rather than direct combat. NATO countries, including France, have stepped up by supplying advanced military equipment and technology to Ukraine. Training programs have been established, where Ukrainian soldiers are taught how to use this Western hardware effectively. These efforts are vital in helping Ukraine resist Russian aggression, but they are also a reminder of how fragile the situation is. The presence of NATO personnel in Ukraine, even in these non-combat roles, adds another layer of complexity. While these troops aren't on the battlefield, their involvement is still seen as a significant move. Russia views this as Western interference, fueling its narrative that NATO is using Ukraine as a proxy to weaken Moscow. This perception heightens tensions and increases the risk of miscalculation. Even the most well-intentioned actions, like training soldiers or delivering equipment, can be spun into evidence of aggression. What makes this even more complicated is the differing opinions among Western nations. Countries closer to the conflict, particularly in Eastern Europe, often push for more decisive action. They see Russia as an immediate and existential threat. This split in approach has led to frustrations and delays in coordinated action, which Russia can exploit. Providing advanced military equipment, training, and economic aid to Ukraine places a significant strain on NATO countries. It's not just about money, it's about prioritizing these efforts while also maintaining readiness for their own national defense. Meanwhile, Russia is keenly aware of these challenges and is using them to its advantage. Hybrid warfare tactics, like spreading disinformation and creating divisions within Western societies, are making it even harder for NATO countries to stay unified. Public opinion in some nations is beginning to waver, with debates over how far Western countries should go to support Ukraine. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.